What do you make of today's market action, and what stage does it set for next week? Steve, it's kind of impossible, obviously, to talk about the market action excluding UnitedHealth if we're talking about the move in the Dow, which sort of isn't a story in and of itself. But just generally, relatively quiet day for news in the markets that move the markets, but big sort of macroeconomic influences at play.
Right. And I think you laid it out perfectly. The Dow was affected by about 180 points for UNH. You said 1,000 points for the year has been the deficit side. So, you know, I'm a little skeptical looking at 13Fs because they're always looking backward.
Sure.
So if you think that it's going to pull, it does have the effect of pulling more investors into some of these names. So you could see some follow through that could last days, weeks, maybe. But UNH has its healthcare costs that have been rising. So those are the issues that really affect whether or not they're going to be a revenue generating in a strong environment company. Having said that, we go through a weak seasonal period between August and October for the overall markets. And you know, the most overused line, this time is different. This time could be different. We have Trump, we have Putin, and we also have the most important thing going on, the biggest Fed meeting
Jackson Hole
coming up, right? So September, if there is a rate cut, that could change that whole historic weakness and seasonal weakness. So everyone's looking at that. Do we get a cut? How much? And I'm looking for a 25% cut. For September, I think 50 is a little...
Basis points.
Yes, exactly. Sorry. Basis points. So I'm looking for that, and I think that will keep the tailwind in the market.
It very much could be a September to remember. Courtney, what do you make? I want to go back to Steve's point about UnitedHealthcare. Yes, 13Fs are backward looking, but this is Berkshire Hathaway. This is Warren Buffett. He's not a trader, right? He's an investor, but also a little uncharacteristic of the way that Warren Buffett invests because of all of, let's just say, scandal sort of surrounding the trouble that UnitedHealthcare has been in. But with an investment from Buffett, does that change your mind on what that opportunity could look like for others going forward?
I actually wouldn't call that uncharacteristic.
Okay,
because
fair.
I think when you look at Berkshire Hathaway and you're going to look at Warren Buffett, he's a long-term value investor.
Okay.
So I think a lot of their problems probably are considered more short-term here. So you're looking at their medical utilization costs, which have been increasing. You're looking at a lot of the issues with the Department of Justice, who's been investigating them and their billing practices. But this had such a sell-off. I mean, at some point in time, I mean, they are one of the largest insurers. And at some point, when it comes to this kind of a value, he's saying, okay, maybe at some point they get over this hump. He's looking at holding these for the long term. So as a short-term trade, I wouldn't get into UNH here. But as a long-term investor, I think he sees a value there. So I'm not jumping in, but I think this is a long-term, not a short-term strategy, which is right up Warren Buffett's alley.
Very interesting. Mike, what do you make of the action in UnitedHealthcare today? And I guess what would an options play here be, potentially, if you see that there is one for UnitedHealth?
Well, I think a lot of people have seen that there is one. I mean, I've sort of followed the UnitedHealth story for quite a long time, back to my CRT Capital days. I mean, this is a company that if they can navigate some of these uncertainties, and I think, to me, the biggest cloud is certainly the investigation, but this is a company that's probably going to do $25 billion worth of free cash flow on we'll call it a $300 billion valuation, round numbers. I'm kind of splitting hairs between the market cap and the enterprise value here. I mean, that is as cheap as the company has traded in 20 years, other than a brief period during the GFC. And, you know, we've got Steve Hemsley back at the helm. I think there was a little bit of a misstep there on the management side. So people are you know, speculatively bullish here. You know, we were seeing some short-term call buying. I think that's just basically news-driven. But we've seen some longer-term call buying as well. It traded over 1 million contracts today. That's a substantial number when you consider that we might trade 40 or 50 million contracts overall across all securities in a given day. You can see, I mean, you're talking about more than 2% of all options flow is calls in UnitedHealth. I think that there are some people who think that the longer-term story is that they could turn this thing around.